This interview maybe is the most important interview I've ever taken part in. And to be honest, I had some stress and before coming on, and I needed some preparation because this time I am not talking about myself. I'm talking about my people and their fight for freedom. So everything I say is going to have an impact on their lives. We could not be free inside Iran and be freely active in any area that we wanted to talk about. Even Bitcoin, we would have faced so many limitations if we were inside Iran. So we had to leave and talk about things that we wanted because everything was forbidden there. And the regime is finally crumbling thanks to President Trump, Netanyahu, who have joined forces with us, have heard our voices and helping this change happen.
Hello, everyone. This is the Bitcoin Libertarian. Our guest today is Momo Tamashbi. Momo is a laser focus on Bitcoin, the Scorsese apprentice himself, and one of the most unfiltered voices from the Iranian diaspora. If you have been following the last weeks, you've seen Momo timeline lights up, celebrating the fall of Khamenei like it's better Bitcoin hitting 1 million, thanking Trump and Netanyahu for finally diamanting the mullah's oppression machinery, calling out libertarian police who cried carpet bombing while ignoring 40-plus years of regime terror and doubling down on King Reza Pahlavi as the path to a free Iran. Momo is not just stacking sats, he's been stacking hope for his people, pushing Bitcoin education even when friends like Sia Sadr were arrested for it years ago and now watching history unfold in real time. We are in March 2026. The Islamic Republic is changing. The regime is crumbling and Persians are thus tasting freedom. And questions are huge. How does Bitcoin fit into rebuilding Iran? Can a post-regime Iran leapfrog final strike to hyper-Bitcoinization? And what does it mean for global Bitcoin adoption when tyranny falls? Momo, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for the very warm welcome message. This interview maybe is the most important interview I've ever taken part in. And to be honest, I had some stress and before coming on, and I needed some preparation because this time I am not talking about myself. I'm talking about my people and their fight for freedom. So everything I say is going to have an impact on their lives. So I wanted to be fully prepared. And you started with the death of Khamenei. That was a very big change in Iran, in the lives of all of us who are living inside Iran, or people like me who are outside Iran, because we could not be free inside Iran and be freely active in any area that we wanted to talk about. Even Bitcoin, we would have faced so many limitations if we were inside Iran. So we had to leave and talk about things that we wanted because everything was forbidden there. And the regime is finally crumbling thanks to President Trump, Netanyahu, who have joined forces with us, have heard our voices and helping this change happen. We have tried every peaceful way to topple this regime, not even topple, to change the behavior of this regime. We have not been successful, and we have had so many casualties, so many people lost their lives from all ages. And finally, we are seeing some change. You had several questions, so just ask them one by one so I can focus on them one by one and answer them.
The first question is, all of the people outside Iran, we don't know what happens inside. I want you to tell us a little bit, talk about the last 40 years in just a few minutes so anyone on the world can understand what people from Iran was living through this regime of the Ayatollah.
Yeah, 47 minutes in a few minutes. I'll try my best to do it some justice. In 1979, the last Shah of Iran left the country and Ayatollah Khamenei took power. And starting from day one, waves of execution began and the Islamic law became the law of the nation, and more changes were being made so that this becomes more solidified. People talk about Epstein these days a lot, and sometimes they say that, well, some of the Iranian regime leaders were not on the list. Well, marrying a 13-year-old in Iran is unfortunate, and under the rule of these mullahs is legal. And from day one, they tried to establish the Sharia law. This was one of the examples, and so many waves of executions came, and so many hostilities towards other countries that didn't have anything to do with us, or we had so long-standing friendly relations with, happened. Israel is one of the examples. Ayatollah Khamenei said that Israel must be wiped out of the map, and that has become the compass for the politicians in Iran. If anyone is blaming Israel for their attack on Iran, they should consider this fact into consideration, that the instigator of the war was not Israel. They didn't show any aggression to my country. You might have any views about Netanyahu, you might have any views about Israel, but they were not hostile to us. And there was no reason to wage a war against them. This is somehow common knowledge that wearing scarf for women is mandatory in Iran, and people have lost their lives because of not conforming to the rules prescribed by the regime authorities. One of the notable examples happened about 3 to 4 years ago, the death of Mahsa Amini. Riots happened all across the country, and people outside Iran also joined the riot. Over 500 people killed, and these are always underestimations, because the real number will never come out, and we have to estimate the numbers, or use some of the or count the number of the confirmed deaths, so that we know how many people have died. This is only one of the examples. And during the rule of mullahs, Iran has gone through an 8-year war with Iraq. That was just a neighboring country, living their lives. Well, the dictator there was not a very sane person, but during the time of Shah, he didn't dare attacking Iran, and once he did, he regretted it in less than a day. But they made the military so weak that it became possible for them to attack, and this war lasted for 8 years. This is another example of what has happened there. And people might be surprised that as an Iranian outside Iran, we are dancing and showing support for the death of Khamenei. This might be surprising, and this happened. It is not that he just died; he died in an attack, and it is an attack on our country. But between all the options that we have had, and between all the possibilities that we have tried, we have gotten nowhere, and we have exhausted. This is the last option that is remaining for us. And you said that you are outside Iran, and you have difficult access to the information inside Iran right now. And guess what? Starting from the day of the war, the regime has disconnected the internet. So all the footages that come out of the country are either sanctioned by the government itself, or they come through the Starlink, or you have to be very tech savvy to be able to connect to the global internet and send some pictures or some videos if you have a very stable connection. So it's been not possible to contact my family for over a week now, and even some of my texts, I have lost connection to my last tech savvy family member. I have no news of my family. So the news has been very much censored there.
How is your family is living there, and how do you have any connection previous to the war, what they were telling, or after the attacks, what they were telling to you?
Mhm. Yeah, I cannot dox the family members who or what they were saying, but I can say in general that sentiment was mostly pro-war among my friends and the family members even. And why is that? It is because we have tried every way possible. We have even the election in Iran is not a real election. It is they they pass several people through a filter and select some of them. They might have different views, but those views are still in line with the views of the government. And then from those, you have to choose one. You have to select, vote for one. So there have been several of these elections, and we have taken part in those, saying that between bad and worse, we will choose the bad. It is lesser of the two evil. In hope that the policies of the government would change, or in the hope that their hostility towards other countries, which had also costs for us, would end or would be at least limited, or our situation improve slightly. But all the time, the result has been the same. The government has been following uh, the same kind of principles, you might say, that they wanted by burning our resources on those objectives. So they ignored the want of Iranian people all the time, and every protest would be faced by bullets. People would just lose their lives. And when you are facing such evil, you start to think, what other option do I have? And lately, around 40 days ago, now 50 days ago, people took it to the street. Before that, the process had started due to so many reasons. The reasons abound, the economic situation, the limitations on people's freedom, the massacre that always happens. All of these have built up, and another opposition, another protest broke out throughout the whole country, even in the most conservative cities, including my city, which is a very small city and very conservative. Uh, they rarely show opposition to the government because in a small city, everyone knows everyone. There was huge protest with Prince Reza Pahlavi, the exiled crown prince, supported the people, was the voice of the people, echoed the voice of the people, and also issued an invitation to protest. On the 2 nights that he had announced, he had mentioned in his announcement, millions of people came out, and the regime used military-grade weaponry against the people. Hours before the protest, not only they cut the internet, as they most of the time do during the times of unrest, they also cut out electricity in my own hometown, Faisal, which is very small, because they were afraid of people uniting and being, and they wanted to make it difficult for them by every means, by even turning off the internet, the electricity, so they cannot see each other when they come out. So there is no light on the lampposts. But they came out, and for days we were not aware of what was going on in Iran, except for a few people who had access to Starlink again. So we only had access to the official narrative, which was a false narrative, or very few videos that started to come out. And it turned out, when the tensions um, went down, more and more videos of the brutalities of the regime came out, and more stories came out, more pictures came out, and it turns out that they have killed over 40,000 protesters over 2 nights, from young kids to the elderly. This is one of the reasons that even the most peaceful, peace-loving, against war people that I knew all my life started opposing the government and saying that this regime cannot go out because it is a true dictatorship. It is like the dictatorship of Hitler. If you voted Hitler out, he wouldn't have gone out. So many dictatorships around the world, you don't have a real election, and protests are always oppressed. So, and there are degrees to the scale of brutality, and the brutality of this regime is, I have an interest in history, and I have studied some of the dictatorships, some of the story of some of the past dictatorships, and I know something about them. And I live in Poland, where they had the communist rule. The situation was terrible, but the level of brutality against the people, when you look at the evidence, when you look at the video footage, when you look at the narratives of the people, was not even close to what's going on here. And that's why we do not have any other option except for welcoming war to Iran, which might seem surprising for many. And we are very well aware that it is going to have so much costs for us. But this regime staying is going to be much more costly. And if anyone has any doubt or any kind of question, even if the tone is not polite I would be willing to answer their questions, because this is not an interview with me. I am going to represent my people, and I would like to be able to represent the views of the majority of the people. So I'll welcome your questions regarding what I said, or if there are questions in the comments.
Yes, so that's something that I wanted to talk to you, because two events happened during this year: the fall of the dictator of Venezuela, and now what is happening to Iran. And what you see is that, I don't know how you feel, because for us it's close, Venezuela, and we know a lot of Venezuelans living in Argentina, that when Maduro was taken out, everyone was celebrating. Now, when Iran regime was wiped out, all the Iranians were celebrating. But on the other side, you see all these liberal living in the United States, Europe, South America, against Trump, supporting Iran. So that's why I want you, because we were talking with Venezuela people in our podcast in Spanish. That's why I want you to talk to the people, to tell the cruelty of this regime and how needed was this operation. In fact, this regime was the perpetrator of the biggest terrorist attack in Argentina. In 1994, there was a bomb, a truck with a bomb inside one of a Jewish organization of Buenos Aires. 86 people died that day, and was organized by Iranian regime. So imagine the problem, the danger for the population. And when you see all these people that they didn't live what you lived before leaving Iran, that they are not even close to what you suffer or what your family or your people is suffering. What do you think, and what do you tell to them?
Yeah, the thing that you said about the terrorist attack in Argentina, that in Persian we call it the Mykonos terrorist attack. I don't know how much the pronunciation of that place or the restaurant is butchered in Persian. That is, yeah, I know of that, and that is one of the examples of real anti-Semitism practiced by the government. There is anti-Semitism that has become a label to shut up your opponent, and that's a joke that's become so ridiculous. But there is real anti-Semitism, that you hate someone just because they are Jewish, and that actually is entwined with the fabric of this regime. As I said, the first leader said that Israel must be wiped out of the earth. And what you are saying is, oh, I have witnessed that, and we can understand why the people there are happy that a foreign government has come and kidnapped their leader. The people of the country are happy, but people with ideological views are mourning the end of a dictatorship in those countries. And they are saying that they are pro-peace, pro-non-intervention. But when these interventions are against the countries that they do not like, then you will see them that they would support it. The way that they support the Islamic Republic, the way that they supported the October attacks against the Israeli civilians, that was also an intervention, but they didn't say anything about that, against that. They even supported Hamas in those circumstances. And I have this short message for them, that if when the regime shut down the internet and killed 40,000 people, and that is just the lower estimate, that is the confirmed estimation that I am saying, and the real number is vastly beyond that. There are so many unidentified and uncounted people who have lost their lives. If you have shut your mouth then, please keep on doing what you were doing before, and do not talk about how we are feeling and how we should feel. We have lived under that dictatorship. We were really pro-peace and against war. Why would we want war against a country that our family lives in? Why would we want a war against a country that we ourselves are living in? Because we have seen that our future depends on this regime going away. So you cannot just say that I am against war, so I condemn this war. You should look at the situation and assess what the people of that country are saying. And this is not a kind of unprovoked war. Something interesting is that the Minister of Foreign Affairs, who was actively taking part in the negotiations with the US, had yelled at Witkoff and said that we have enough uranium, enriched uranium, to make 11 atomic bombs. So that was how he wanted to negotiate with them. That was his last weapon. And he was threatening that, yeah, you obliterated all our facilities, but we have enough enriched uranium hidden and saved up to make atomic bombs. So that's why one of the last straws that made the negotiations go bad and the US attacking Iran, because the regime in Iran was actively acting against the interests of the US. So if you are a libertarian and pro-peace, and you value non-aggression principle, which I very value and I adhere to, it doesn't mean that if someone slaps you, you turn the other cheek. If someone slaps you, you hit them so hard, they don't think about slapping you anymore. If you are not starting the aggression, that's very noble, but someone else starts the aggression, you should be retaliating. The Islamic regime has been implicated on the assassination attempt on Trump. They have had led several terrorist attacks in countries around the world, and anyone I talk to has some experience with, including you, the biggest terrorist attack that has happened in your country. And so many of our authorities are not able to leave the country because the Interpol would arrest them because of that very Mykonos terror attack, whatever it is in Portuguese. Sorry for butchering the pronunciation. That's how we know it in Persian. So they have been spreading terror against the nations around us and far away from us. From the day one at school, they ask you to chant "Death to America," and down with Israel, down with the US. You're chanting death to all the nations. For some time, they were saying death to Saudi Arabia, and they were one of the neighbors that had okay relationships with us, and they had embassy inside Iran and all kinds of relations. Suddenly, they became the enemy too, so they were added to the list. The UK was in the list, and at some point, it was removed from the list. So they have asked for war through words and through their actions all the time. And if a country like the US or Israel, who have been the main targets for them in their words and in their actions, retaliating, you should understand that the Islamic regime started that, and that has not been the will of our people. Iranian people love Americans. They would love to go to America, live there, and maybe some of the best nations, best civilians they can find. When you ask Americans, everyone has some Persian friend, and they have very good relations with. This is not what we wanted. This is what the regime wanted. And and we know that Trump and Netanyahu are not seeking to realize what the people of Iran want. They are acting in their own interest, which is correct, which is the right thing to do. This is something that our leaders, our politicians did not do. And at this moment, their want aligns with our want, and that's why we are supporting that. We have realized that this regime will not go without a bang. And we thank the leaders of these countries for having taken some action and for having understood the gravity of the situation and the danger this regime poses and the tricks that this regime plays, and eventually have taken action. Negotiations were a kind of end goal for the regime. Negotiations just for the sake of negotiations. Negotiations, to be more accurate, just for buying time. And all the other governments have tried the strategy of appeasement, giving them some points and going with the flow, going with the negotiations. But Trump realized that these negotiations, they are not pursuing any change as a result of these negotiations. This is something that the other presidents did not realize. And this is something that Israel all the time realized because they were in the closer proximity to us. And the Islamic regime, I refrain from saying Iran because they are not us. This is just an Islamic regime that has occupied Iran. They have supported openly Hezbollah in Lebanon. They have supported Hamas in Palestine. So if you are pro-Palestine, well, the cause of the problem comes from a regime that supports the armed opposition that has ideas like reviving the Sharia law. And they openly say that, the regime openly says that, and also the leaders of those organizations openly say that they are financed by the Islamic regime. If you look at any kind of terrorist organization, they are funded by the Islamic regime. So this is a real danger, not just to us, but to other countries. And to us, they had weapons to kill us. For others, fortunately, they are facing with greater powers. And we are seeing some changes.
Yes, I agree with the principle of non-aggression. Is the same for me. But of course, I am a person who is peaceful, but if someone tries to hit me on the street, I will counterattack, no matter what. Like if somewhere is a threat for me, for my family, of course I will. I have the right to counterattack. That's why United States and Israel are doing. I think that Islamic regime uh, funding all these terrorist organizations that are a threat not only for Israel, for the surrounding countries that are not Jew, that are Muslims, but they are peaceful, because this is also a misconception. Because of the regime, Muslims equal terrorists, no matter what. And most of the people that I know that are Muslim, and I've been in Qatar, I've been in Dubai, all of the people are peaceful. And talking about that, how can the neighbors of Iran, which countries support the United States intervention, and which other countries support Iran, or the countries that support Iran are not countries, are terrorist organizations? Not Iran, the Islamic
Islamic
regime.
regime.
Sorry.
I'm really glad that you asked that. Before the war broke out, there were several countries that were supporting the Islamic regime, including Turkey and Oman. And this is a kind of hypothesis that I have, and I have a lot of support for. There is this theory that some of the neighboring countries gain from a weak Iran. Iran is a vast country with lots of resources. Even after the obliteration of this regime, still this land is full of opportunities, and the people are so smart. They are hired in the best companies all around the world at the highest levels. So they have a big competition. And with respect to tourism, with respect to resources, when Iran is powerful, they are going to lose some of the opportunities. When Iran is out of the picture, they have less competition. So there were countries that supported Iran due to some of the ties that they had with them. And you can never trust the devil. And I would like people to appreciate the sheer amount of vileness that these people in the government have, and really understand that and come into terms with that. Oman was a country that facilitated the negotiations till the last minute. The foreign minister of Oman was transmitting messages between the American party and the Iranian party in all these meetings, no matter how long they took, so that the negotiations would get somewhere. And after Israel and the US struck the bases inside Iran, because they are all words and not much action, they are all boasting and no action. They didn't have the capability to accurately target some of the bases inside Israel or the US at all. They cannot reach US. Anything they send there will be obliterated before it gets to the destination. They haven't been able to even attack the Navy that is close to them. So what else can they do? And here where the violence comes. They have attacked all the neighboring countries, and even the ones that we have regained relationships with, or the ones that had good relations with the Islamic regime, including Oman. Even they have been attacked by the Islamic regime. They have shot bases inside Oman. That was the most surprising for me. They have shot an American base inside Turkey. And though Turkey was facilitating the talks and was about to host some of the negotiations. It then changed to Oman. It has attacked Saudi Arabia. It has attacked Bahrain. It has attacked Qatar. My friend Zia, who has been on your show, and you mentioned in the beginning of the show, who was a prisoner in Iran for an extended time, he now lives in the UAE. And Abu Dhabi was also target of the attacks, and civilian centers were attacked. It is not that some American bases there were attacked. A hotel was attacked there. So what uh, we can see in these people is that sometimes they are cunning, sometimes they act very smart, but something that has no limit in these people is their vileness and their evilness. That even the countries that are next to them, because their missiles to Israel would be intercepted, they suddenly shoot some bases in Saudi Arabia, because although they are not part of the war, they shoot them to take them by surprise and just hit somewhere. Yeah, so they are really, when we say pure evil, we can really count on how much more evil they can get. So they have attacked all the neighboring countries, which will have some consequences for us after the regime is toppled. How do we regain the relationship with these countries who are our neighbors, who could have been our allies, but are now targeted by the Islamic regime's missiles, and some of the civilians there have lost their lives.
Yes, I saw this. You mentioned the pure evil of the regime, that it's getting attacked, and as they cannot attack Israel straight because they have the Iron Dome, and it's very difficult to attack Israel right now. Israel is been preparing for attacks for all their lives, and I saw drones attacks to Dubai airport, to Abu Dhabi. I talked last Monday. I talked with a guy that is from Colombia in our podcast in Spanish, that is living in Dubai, and he was telling me about what happened. That some missiles were intercepted, but the debris fall into the ground and damage some buildings, some hotels, and cause the lives of civilian people. That's what I point when I see that the Iranian regime is not a threat only for Iranian people, but for the rest of the world, because they have this way to fight. They don't care about just fighting a war, but they like to spread the terror. So, and how long have you left Iran? And could people leave Iran during all this time, and now especially with the war?
During the war, I believe it is impossible 100% to leave the country. Before the war, it was very difficult, and I mentioned the protests about 50 days ago, under the leadership of Prince Reza Pahlavi, that broke out. When the internet was shut down, people had no communication at all. You couldn't reserve a ticket if you had not, and so many of the flights were canceled. That was very difficult, but was not impossible. These days, it would be impossible. Even neighboring countries have had problems. I have a friend who works in tourism industry, and so many of their passengers were inside Dubai, and they were not able to leave the country for an extended period of time. Um, so yeah, these things are happening, and I myself left Iran at the age of around 27, about 8 years ago. So it's been 8 years that I have not been able to go back to Iran, and I have visited my family only once, and it was not inside Iran. It was outside Iran, because I cannot simply go back because of having spoken my mind, and having spoken against the government.
How many members of your family are still in Iran?
Almost everyone is still in Iran. There are two exceptions. I can say that the rest are all of them, close and far, are in Iran.
And did they face the evilness of the regime?
It has been observed by some of the members of my family. There have been people who have been imprisoned, who have faced problems. Also, during the last wave of the protests, um, I'm grateful that no one was killed, but there were people who were injured, and also two cases of people who were going through trials and interrogations.
And how do you see the conflict evolving on these upcoming months? Because Donald Trump said that they will finish all the tasks and remove all the top politicians of the Islamic regime in 5 weeks. I don't know how big is the army and how long can Iran or the Islamic regime, fight on this war? Do you think that it's possible to finish the conflict in 5 weeks, or the world needs to be prepared for a long conflict between United States, Israel, and the Islamic?
And the attack, the war is not going to take a crazy long time as it has in some other regions of the world. And I would say that that estimation by Trump is very realistic. Already, the regime has not been able to launch any ballistic missile in the past few days. So it was around 200 something, a huge number, or maybe even in the 500s. And then it came down and it has reached zero. So their capability to launch the missiles has ended. Maybe because they don't have any launcher left, or maybe they have run out of ballistic missiles. That's one of the things that has happened. So they are already very much weakened. And the leader, Khamenei, was killed in the first hours of the attack, something between 1 hour to 3 hours after the attack started. So in the early hours, he was killed. And I can say that 40% of the work was done there. When let's connect it to Bitcoin a little bit, since it's a Bitcoin podcast. In Bitcoin, we cherish decentralized because there is no single point of failure. There is this comparison of starfish versus spider. Spider, like humans, has a central nervous system. If you crush its head, it will die. It will stop functioning. But starfish, you cut all the limbs, and a whole organism comes out of each limb that you cut, because they do not have a central nervous system. In Iran, the regime had a central agency that made all kinds of decisions, or made all the guidelines for the kinds of decisions to be taken, or appointed key figures. Even the council that oversees who can become the president before the election occurs is overseen by him, was overseen by him. So it was very centralized, the power was very centralized, and when they were damaged, some things that we hadn't seen in the previous wars happened, and one of the examples was attacking the neighboring countries. We were surprised to see that on the day one, they were attacking some of the allies or the neutral countries around us. It was very surprising to us. Then we heard rumors of Khamenei having been killed. And then we realized that, wow, the regime is acting so erratically, and everyone is making that decision just on their own somewhere because they have lost the head. And that's one, before the news was confirmed by Netanyahu and Trump before they said that they had seen the picture. We were almost sure that Khamenei has been killed. And one of the side effects of that was these chaotic decisions that they were making. They had lost their central nervous system. The military bases are being targeted very accurately by Israel, especially, and they have lost their power. So I do not, given the kind of decisions that they have been making, given the fact that Khamenei is out of the picture, and given the fact that their most powerful weapons that can be a threat to other countries are almost gone, the drones still apparently exist, and these are the same kind of drones that Russia uses against Ukraine, Shahed drones. So they still exist. I haven't heard anything about them having been stopped. But the ballistic missiles, which were very dangerous and could have potentially used for mounting nuclear weapon, they have ceased to be shot, and that's something promising. So I can see that the power of the regime has really weakened, and that period of war is maybe an estimation on the, like, considering the worst case scenario. I would say that we are hoping to see a regime toppling and a full surrender anytime soon.
And what is the line of succession? Because of course the main leader was killed, and most of the people who were surrounding him were also killed. It was not like in Venezuela, because in Venezuela they just pick up Maduro and his wife, and now the vice president is on the country. How is the line of succession? Who is now in charge of the Iranian regime, or is more like now it's a little bit of anarchy?
It's a little bit of, kind of commission ruling over the regime. There is the president was always a puppet. So here's what makes Iranian people worried is that when Israel and US are sure that the Islamic regime is not able to retaliate or pose any threat to them, they cease the attacks. Because if they are unable to launch ballistic missiles, if they lose all their enriched uranium that they have clear threat and they would use to make nuclear bombs run out or is obliterated, then they will be still able to oppress the people, because it only takes a bullet to shoot one person, and that's very easy to have, and all of the oppressive forces have that. So the end game for us is the full surrender, and it's very promising that President Trump last night also mentioned that or 2 nights ago, that he is requiring full surrender. Otherwise, they will be faced with lethal force. The end game, the way they are saying it, is that, and I'm hoping that there is no negotiation behind the curtains, and because if the threat for other countries goes away, then the problem for us is not solved. It is going to be the same kind of government, only for inside Iran, and it will take some time for them to spend all our resources on funding the proxy elements in Yemen, in Palestine, and then rebuild all these infrastructure of terror that they had before. It will delay it considerably, but it will not cease it. And I'm hoping that the foreign governments see that as their long-term goal and really continue the attack until the point that they surrender.
Yes, that's a good point because it would happen in Venezuela. I have two questions on that. The first one is inside Iran, before moving to this, the aftermath. Inside Iran, which percentage of the people is, as long as the few information you have, right? But which percentage of the people is against the regime and in favor of the attacks, and which percentage of the people are still supporting the Iranian regime?
I would say that support for the Iranian regime would be literally less than 15%, and you can see it in their congregations, in their celebrations and ceremonies, how little compared to other years they are gathering, and how desperate they are that they reuse footage and pictures from other years. And thanks to AI, they are producing AI images to fake then a high number of supporters for themselves, and they are really ridiculous. That you see that there is an Iranian flag on in the middle of the street. It is one of the AI generated photos that the government uses, and you see some people are sticking out of the flag that is, between the people there. So they are making any desperate attempt to show that they have support, but it's literally less than 15%. And there are many ways that you can assess that. The participation in election has gone down every year. There have been times that there were some spikes. So you can find two exceptions, um, and that is another reason why I say that we are very peace-loving people. That we wanted to, have a more moderate government, still the same regime, but at least have some more freedoms. So there were some spikes when the hopes of changing the behavior of the government was observed. But the last two presidents from two different factions were elected with the lowest participation rate. And it was so bad the last time that they multiplied all the numbers by 3. So when you looked at all the results, they were all divisible by 3, which is an impossible thing when you are dealing with randomly generated numbers and the votes for elections follow that random pattern. So the amount of support the government has, I can confidently say, is less than 15%. And the amount of support for the war is almost as big as the number of people who are supporting a regime change, because there must be exceptions. I have seen people who are opposed to war. I myself am saddened by some of the things that I see during the wars, and I am saddened by the fact that this was the only option that we were left. But we recognize that it was the last resort that we had, and I can say that 100% of people who are against the regime are for the attacks, with very few exceptions.
Yes, I agree on that. And talking about the aftermath of, I hope this ends soon because war is not good, even though sometimes we need the attacks to remove like an evil regime, but it's not good for the people because usually when this happens, there are casualties on the civilian population of Iran. Now we saw around the other countries surrounding Iran. But I hope it finish soon. Trump says that they want elections. And how do you see the aftermath of that? And also, if you are afraid that in Iran happened the same that is happening in Venezuela, Donald Trump just removed Maduro, but the regime stays, and now they are collaborating with Trump, but the regime is still there. Are you afraid of that? Or you think that it's not possible in Iran?
we have had this fear over time. When Trump said that help is on the way, it's a very famous post he made on Truth Social when people were protesting and the regime was killing people on the street. There was a kind of 3-day deadline, but it lingered because they managed to convince Trump to engage in negotiations. And another another token of the violence of the regime is that how did they get Trump back to the negotiation table was that they said that we will stop the executions of the people. So they have arrested thousands of people. They have killed thousands of people. And they are telling a foreign country that we will not kill in our own citizens, but come back to the negotiation table. So we are hostages for this regime. They promised not to kill 897 or something in the ballpark of 850 protesters. But still, there were executions that were being done in other ways, very silently, or the prisoners whose names were not known and whose families were pressured not to reveal their identity, they would receive the body which was freshly deceased from the morgue. Though they were saying that no, there are no execution going on, and we are negotiating. This is the message that they were giving abroad, but inside, when they were speaking in Persian, they were like that. Trump is always talking big. Trump is talking nonsense, and these are the exact words that they were saying on the national TV. We will fiercely act and sentence the people who caused these unrests. So such things have happened in relation to Iran too, and there is always a degree of pessimism, healthy degree of pessimism there. But the way things are going so far, and the fact that the leader was hit on the first day was very promising. And what makes me very optimistic about the uprisings over the past few years is the difference, especially this last one, is that most of the people have come to recognize an opposition that cannot be easily touched by the Iranian regime. And that's the Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi, who lives outside Iran. And because of that, he could not be imprisoned or could not be easily killed. The danger is always there. We are all worried about that. And they have issued notebooks that you can download on the internet in Persian and English on how the transition period is going to be. And they are aiming at making a kind of a temporary government for the transition of power from the Islamic Republic to a democratically elected kind of government. Though Reza Pahlavi is the crown prince of Iran, he is not advocating only monarchy and nothing else. My vote would be the revival of monarchy because our lives in those days were just not comparable to what we have today. And it's going back to a structure that we knew and worked very well for us. We have had a tradition of monarchy for thousands of years inside Iran, and there are democracies all around the world that are uh, based, whose core is monarchy. Some of the countries that you would love to live in, such as Spain, such as the Netherlands, Sweden, these countries have monarchy still, but they are democratic. My vote would be that. But one of the tokens of his him being smart and making smart choices is that my mission is to get the country to the point that we can vote for the kind of government that comes afterwards. And for me, what matters is democracy, not the type of the government, not the type of the regime, not the structure, but whatever that people elect is going to be uh, what's going to be established. So we have written plans that two versions of it have come out, and that is another token of openness of um, the Crown Prince, is that they issued the first notebook. It was several months ago, maybe even over a year ago. I do not remember the exact day. And there were criticisms against this notebook for guidelines for the transition. And they issued another, they updated based on the criticism, they updated it, and now there is a second version that came out just before the war. So we have a very good, trustworthy, and unrelenting leader who has been constantly against the government. He has never cooperated with the government, and he could not be touched by the government. Um, he has a plan for transitioning the country, and he's trusted by people like me who are monarchists, and people like so many of my friends who are not monarchists and want a republic. But for the transition, they have stood behind Prince Reza Pahlavi to make this transition. Has been his verbal vow, and also it's in writing. So this is what makes me very optimistic about this uprising, is that it has a very trustworthy leader who has a written plan. People can talk all they want, but as long as you haven't brought it on the paper, we cannot look at it and assess it. It's very difficult to assess what you are saying, but when you bring it on the paper, this is a written dictation. We can look at it and correct it. And yeah, in the case of Prince Reza Pahlavi and the current and uprisings and changes, we hope, fortunately, have this, and we are hopeful for a better future.
Excellent. And well, we are a Bitcoin podcast, and of course, when this happens, when the war comes, Bitcoin is less important, is secondary. But how has Bitcoin helped Iranian people like you to fly out of the regime, to escape from the regime, and Iranian people inside Iran to protect their wealth, their freedom, their sovereignty with Bitcoin?
Yeah, very excellent point. Maybe I have mentioned it on your other podcast that when I got to know Bitcoin, I was inside Iran. So I managed to get some Bitcoin using indirect means, because we didn't have access to PayPal, we didn't have access to Visa card or any kind of exchanges. And because of the sanctions imposed on us, because of the behavior of the regime, and because no one can trust the banks inside Iran, so they don't have any relationships. So I had very difficult time getting Bitcoin, but I got some, and I didn't appreciate the value that much. And I was in an economy class when I was here in Poland, and our teacher talked about the increase in value of Bitcoin. And I remember that when I got it, it was around 100 something, and he was saying that it's around 3,000. I said, "What? I have Bitcoin." And that's when I went to my computer, entered the seed phrase, and recovered my Bitcoin. And that was how um, without even realizing it, literally, I had the money with me. But the fiat money, I had to make calls, wait for codes, and transfer the money, trust that they will be delivering on their promise, and get the money, and then pass it through the border. And it was physical money. I didn't have an account here. So it was very difficult to get fiat, but the Bitcoin was only 12 words. And we have been educating people about Bitcoin all these years. With my friend Sina, we have BitGuide, and I myself have Round the Fire with Momo. And my Persian site is one of the focuses of it is Bitcoin too. And we have been trying to educate people on Bitcoin throughout these days because of the internet disconnection and because most people were just traumatized by the events that had happened. Well, they were less focused on Bitcoin, but I am very happy to announce that I know of at least one person who found the importance of Bitcoin during the uprising and during the crackdown, and she got onto Bitcoin and also Nostr after that massacre had happened and shortly before the war. So yeah, that's one of the very good things that I have seen. We have not been as successful as we wanted to be with respect to popularizing Bitcoin inside Iran. But people like me, after the revolution, can go back to Iran and we can propagate Bitcoin in person, and I can have my own Bitcoin walks inside Iran. So I am very much looking forward to that day. And whatever the government is going to be in the future, I am 100% near 100% sure that it is not going to be Islamic Republic. They have burnt all their chances with the leaders of the world, and even they have come to the realization that this regime has to go. Whether it's a republic, whether it's a monarchy that I want, or whatever money that I have, my money is going to be Bitcoin, and I'm going to educate people on Bitcoin when I am back there.
Yeah, I hope you can go back soon. And I always say the same: if you don't want wars anymore, you need to have Bitcoin. You need to own Bitcoin and put in cold storage. This is the best way that we can fight against any wars and any crazy dictatorial regime around the
Exactly.
world.
Can I add something to that? Actually, to your point, that there was this very successful entrepreneur in Iran, Mr. Saidiniya. I mentioned the name so that you can search his name. He he supported people's uprising about 50 days ago, and the government confiscated all his assets. If it was Bitcoin, it wouldn't have been possible to threaten him this way. And we are starting a fundraising for our for the people inside Iran who have been hurt by the government. Either they have lost a family member who was the breadwinner of the family, or they have uh, lost their money battling lawsuits, or have faced the same fate as Mr. Sardinia, whose assets have been confiscated. So Mr. Sardinia is one notable example. Another example is one of the big soccer players, famous soccer players, Ali Karimi, who is outside Iran. His assets were also confiscated. His assets inside Iran. Bitcoin cannot be confiscated, and it cannot be spent on oppressing people, and it cannot be spent on waging wars. If we had all our resources in our hands, our government couldn't inflate our money into non-existence and fund proxy wars. This is something that they still are doing in the midst of the war, because they can just print money into existence and spend it on anything that they want, and we as the people have to suffer with the consequences. But Bitcoin will end this vicious cycle.
Totally agree on that. That's why we educate people on Bitcoin. And the last question is, how do you see this evolving in the next 6 months or 1 year or 1 year plus? How do you see this? You see that Iran is going to come back to normal rails with the regime out? You see more conflict? I want to see I want to know your point on that.
Mhm. One of the great things about Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi is that he has already started negotiations and has won the favor of some of the politicians. So there is going to be less conflicts. But the damage that Iran has suffered all these years has been immense. One of the points that Prince Reza Pahlavi has also mentioned is the problem of water in Iran that we are facing. It is already in an emergency situation right now. Electricity is unreliable, and so much of the infrastructure is being shut, or even before being shut. I should stress this more. They were enriching uranium, and they were claiming that they were using it for peaceful means, but Iran was facing frequent electricity cutouts. It was a reality of everyday life. So they were not using 1 ounce of these uraniums for producing energy. This was just false propaganda that they were trying to propagate. So we have so many things to recover from. The lives that are lost cannot be recovered, but we are hoping that justice will be brought to those people who have inflicted these pains on people. So in 1 year, I'm hoping that I am interviewing with you from inside Iran. And we have a long way to go. And that's the truth of it, that we have suffered the Islamic regime, and any minute that they stay in power and they do not just surrender, we are losing more and more. And we have a long way to regain what we have lost.
Yes, and I hope we can do this interview next year or as soon as possible with you in Iran visiting your family, because I know how is being away from your family for a long time. It happened to me, of course, in different situations. When I moved to Hong Kong, COVID started, and I was 5 years without coming back to Argentina to visit, especially my grandmother, that at that time she was old, and I was able to visit her before she passed away, and was so good for me. But yeah, I can feel your pain, and I hope it solves as soon as possible and you can go back to your country and enjoy your family. And of course, not only you, all of the people in Iran can enjoy freedom and can be free and a prosperous country again. Anything else you want to add, Momo, and how people can contact you?
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Tahmasbi, at Noster. When you search Momo Tamashbi, I will show up. And on Noster on Twitter, I am the most active. And as you said in the beginning, after because of the reach of Twitter, especially because all people are using it, I became way more active on Twitter. And as a thank you to Elon Musk for supporting our movement, I am going to buy the subscription too. I think I will do it tomorrow. And yeah, so Twitter and Nostr are the best places to follow me, and also my YouTube channel, Around the Fire with Momo. And I am also, my main focus became Bitcoin, but because of these uprisings and protests, we found it fit to talk about the people of Iran. And so the last 2 episodes, three videos on that are related to events in Iran.
Excellent. Yes, there are things that sometimes, okay, we are focused on Bitcoin, but we must talk about what is happening in the world, the geopolitics, because Bitcoin is not disconnected from what happens in
True.
the world. So, Momo, again, thank you very much. Has been a
Thank you,
pleasure
brother.
to talk to you and to learn what is happening there. I hope everyone on the other side learned a lot what is happening. And again, I hope we can do this interview next year or as soon as possible from you in Iran. And of course, make Iran Persia again.
Exactly. Thank you.
And thank you very much, who is on the other side. If you like the episode, give us a like, subscribe to our channel, follow us on social media, follow us, Momo, social media as well, because doing so, you help us a lot to give the orange pill to everyone around there. Share this episode with the people you love, share this episode with the people you hate, because we must reach 8 billion people and give them the orange pill. See you in the next episode. Stay humble, stack sats, and remember, we are all Satoshi.
start. Bitcoin, a code, a new kind of art. How were you